problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds.
Welcome to Sarah's Country, where we discuss the matters that matter most to farming food and fibre in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's about sharing the knowledge to spread the load and achieve together our aspirations to be the world's finest farmers and growers, both for our economic recovery of our small island nation at the bottom of the world, but alongside the best environmental and social impacts that we can have collectively together to advance this and get it right. Sharing is caring, and that is why we bring this show to you free 3 nights a week live to share your comments and views on the largest issues and bring a sense of community around why we do or need to do more in every area. I'm your host, Sarah Perriam, and it's my honour to be in this role to learn alongside you. It's not to be an expert, but to bring you knowledge experts, to inspire and challenge your thinking and, of course, mine. It's a noisy world out there with so much information, and if you do find Sarah's Country your reliable and hopefully trustworthy source of information, please feel free to share this with your friends, your work team, and the wider farming community. We would greatly appreciate that. Now, my other honour is that I get to share in the latest in-depth journalism from Global HQ's team of experienced agri-journalists and analysts' stories in a video and audio form from their stories online and in the weekly newspaper. For more information, please check out farmersweekly.co.nz and make sure to subscribe to the Daily Digest so that you can get the latest news in your inbox. All you do, top right-hand corner on their website, easy as drop your email in and join the tens of thousands that use this resource every day. Now, on the topic of sharing, there is nothing that beats a good potluck dinner. The term for a communal gathering where each guest or group contributes a different, often homemade dish of food to be shared. Now, I did a little bit of a Google search, and it tells me that the concept originated most likely in the 1930s during the Depression. I have a forced hand that I have to hold a potluck dinner tomorrow night to celebrate the new house, of course, from my work colleagues here at Blink, and being under the pump these days, growing the Perriam Media team, moving into our brand new studio in a few weeks and lots of other things going around. The idea of a potluck is a godsend. Now, I love hosting people. Perriams are hospitable people by nature. I love, spreading 6 cookbooks across my table, making, 3-course meals with way too many ingredients, but of course the idea it's a Thursday night potluck seems like a dream. But I have a problem. It's one that I feel shared is halved, but it's not really my problem. It's Joel's. He doesn't know what to cook to bring. So I thought, what an awesome opportunity to crowdsource this for him in the comments below, wherever you're watching across 15 different channels we stream Sarah's Country to. Please, we'd love to crowdsource, as I said, Joel's dish of choice. Joel, There's got to be some criteria around this, though. Some limitations in your cooking ability or what you like or don't like.
I mean, I'm a half decent cook, I'd like to say, but I'm used to cooking for me and a partner, so like 2 people. I don't normally cook for big groups, so yeah, I don't really know what to cook.
So you're going to double, triple, quadruple just your existing recipes? I've got to admit, we've got some vegos, vegetarians, some vegans, and maybe some kids. I mean, I don't judge. Anyone's welcome in my house. So it has to be quite universally appealing to a wide group of people.
Yeah, something quick and easy as well would be nice because, I'm busy doing all of this. I don't really have time to cook during the week.
I mean, the thing is too, I thought, what about theme it around the world? Everybody has to bring a different dish from a different country. Ireland cuisine is quite inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the stereotype and just bring mashed potatoes. Yeah.
Lots of potato recipes.
Lots of potatoes.
Okay, I can't wait to read out your suggestions. So get busy in the comments below. Even bonus points if you put recipe links in. You'll be the pot at the end of Joel's rainbow if you do that. Mother Joanne, if you're listening, family heirloom recipes from the Rock household, you can share with Joel. That'd be much appreciated. I am on a crock pot of a good hearty beef stew from Kathy Patterson's Meat and Three book. I love that book. I whipped it out this morning, and of course I've swung by the liquor store and picked up bottles of Central Otago Pinot Noir. Of course it's winter. Beef stew, oh, great. Thank God we have our early dinner, because I thought, tell you what, we're going to get hungry reading out these ideas. Please send them in the comments below. I can see them coming through already. Now, turning now to the stories we are sharing with you tonight. After 7:20, DairyNZ Chief Executive Tim Mackle is going to share surveyed dairy farmers' top 10 priorities for the new government post the October election. And I think I'm going to ask him, are our industry bodies playing politics themselves, treading lightly around the edges with our government to not have the door shut on them, welcoming every announcement? I look forward to finding out Tim's response to this. Super inspiring innovations are happening, which could see the Bay of Plenty, the first region in the country to harvest high-value bioactive molecules alongside their perennial kiwifruit crop. And it's going to put Māori iwi on the front foot of value-add business opportunities. After 7:30, Chief Exploration Officer Nigel Slaughter from Ligar is going to join us to explain more about the harvest of nutrients from molecules that could position New Zealand seriously in the nutraceutical game as consumers focus more on the health benefits from their food. To close the show, an area that COVID has hit considerably is the consequences of the luxury goods market internationally, and it's having a flow-on effect to our environment. How? Well, it's a massive mounting problem that our government and our industry may be turning a blind eye to. Wallace Group South Island Casualty Stock Operations General Manager Bernie Linsky joins us after 7:40 to describe how nearly 250,000 calves may end up buried on farm this year. First up on the show, is our stock prices inflated above reality and not on the same trajectory as the demand for red meat in the global market impacted by COVID? General Manager for Livestock and Shareholder Services for Alliance Group, Danny Hales, is going to join us next to take my questions and yours. So please put them in the comments below, as well as we will get to these amazing recipes that are pouring through just for Joel. See you soon after the break.
This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Well, Joanne Rock is awake, Joel. She's out. She'll be walking the dog on the beach in Northern Ireland, and she's flat out sending through suggestions that Joel's a great cook, according to Joanne. But what about some haggis, Joel? My dad loves haggis. But he has to do the whole palavery every time we have haggis and stab it and yell and scream and splutter. Can you do that tomorrow?
If you're going to go to the hassle of making haggis, you got to do the whole routine as well, I feel.
Can you do that, though, tomorrow night? Is it too late?
Well, I got to go catch the haggis, and that's a whole thing in itself, so...
Okay, all right. For Christmas, we're going to have Joel address the haggis. I can't wait for that. And I promise you, I will definitely film it and put it on Instagram. Now, in an article from Neil Wallace, front page of this week's Farmers Weekly, meat companies are warning new season's red meat prices are already under pressure as the lingering COVID-19 pandemic creates global uncertainty. While there are tentative signs of improving demand from China, elsewhere world markets are generally weak as countries grapple with resurging outbreaks of the disease and undermining consumer spending and confidence. Joining us to understand if AgriHQ senior analyst Mel Crode's ongoing commentary that there's a disconnect between what is being paid for store lambs at the moment and meat values into the future are correct is Alliance Group's General Manager for Livestock, Danny Howes. Welcome to Sarah's Country. Danny, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Sarah. It's my pleasure to be here.
And I know with a name like Danny Hales, at the end of this interview, we're going to get some great recipes from you from the Northern Hemisphere. But Danny, Mel Crode has been going on about this for quite some time. Do you believe your livestock team and the prices you're passing on to third-party procurement agents are a bit out of whack with the demand for globally?
Well, Sarah, I think it's it's fair to say that the procurement prices that are being paid at the moment, I think pretty much across the board, aren't necessarily reflective of what's happening in the sales market, and it's not unusual for this time of year. So what I mean is that you've really got prices that are that tend to reflect more procurement tension. And so you have processors who are trying to fill their chains at their plants, and there's much more limited supply of animals at this time of year as we're sort of coming out of the season past and sort of not quite into the new season. So you find that it's really a sort of a supply and demand issue around filling processing capacity. So, markets are very volatile. I mean, COVID is still causing havoc around the world, really, in terms of red meat markets. And so some of the higher prices or movements, if you like, in schedule pricing tends to be more motivated by, in my view, filling plants at the moment as opposed to reflecting what's actually happening in the market, the sales market.
Yeah, okay. Before we get on to predictions and where that's going to head to, why has Alliance recently adjusted its price and the other processors that haven't?
So, as a cooperative company, I mean, we've always made it clear to our farmer shareholders that we will be always endeavouring to make sure that pricing reflects the market. And so while there are a number of factors that go in and taken into account in setting price and procurement tensions which I've just mentioned, the reality is that sales markets have been softening, and so we've adjusted our pricing to our schedule pricing in the procurement market to as best we can reflect what's happening in the sales market, bearing in mind that we do also need to compete. So it's always a bit of a balancing, juggling situation to try and get it right, but we are doing our best to actually give our farmer shareholders a best indication of what's actually happening in the marketplace. In the same way that when prices go up, then we will be putting those prices up and paying them, paying the benefits to the farmer.
Yeah, okay. So what about which shareholder? Because the mum and dad sheep and beef farmer out there has been priced out of that market, and it really stacks up that the margins are really in favour of the traders.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. Pricing is, we set pricing across the board, and in terms of traders, some farmers do like to deal with a trader. It's a farmer's choice. We always encourage our farmer shareholders to deal with us directly, given that they own the business, so it makes sense for them to do that. And by doing so, ultimately that encourages best price for direct supply.
What does this mean, Finn, going into November and the flow-on effect of new season lamb? Do we have a backlog in the freezer?
So, no, look, our inventories aren't too bad, but look, the reality is, Sarah, that markets are fairly gloomy at the moment, and that's really going through into December, really. We don't see any major excitement in the markets between now and December, and that's all driven by just the volatility that's out there, or the uncertainty that COVID is creating. Everybody will be aware of the impact that COVID's had on the food service sector. And so Alliance Group is trying to be as nimble as we can. So we're moving product around. So not only are we moving product from that food service sector and into the likes of retail, but we're also adjusting or modifying the products. So the end product that we're putting into the market. So we're producing, if you like, smaller items that are more user-friendly, I guess, for the consumer. And that they can take home and cook quickly and without any fuss. And so we are moving around, adjusting of what we're actually putting through our plants in terms of our end product going into market to match the changes that are occurring there.
And how has the government's commitment to ensuring air freight is kept at a reasonable amount to get our product, especially our chilled product, up into our markets?
Yeah, well, we do from time to time use air freight for chilled product, but generally our product is shipped. So, and the reality is that from time to time we do rely on air freight, but it's in the overall scheme of things, it's small volumes, and it tends to be in a situation where the customer is prepared to pay for the air freight. They have a particular need at a particular time, and the best way to meet that need and meet the timing is via air freight. But I think it's important that everyone understands that most of the product is shipped, but there is a need from time to time for that air freight. So it is important, I guess, to keep that avenue open.
While I've got you here, Danny, later on in the show, we're going to be speaking to Bernie Linsky from the Wallace Group, and now, of course, charging farmers to pick up casualty stock. The veal market's taken a considerable hit, and Alliance will certainly be feeling that. What sort of information are you passing on to your Alliance farmer shareholders around the flow-on effect that's having across their business, and particularly dairy farmers?
Yeah, well, it's in fact, Sarah, we just we put out a regular news, what we call a brief bites, which goes out to our farmer shareholders. We just put one out on Sunday, put it out every couple of weeks or so, and in there we actually provided some market information around veal. Look, again, bobby calf veal, the market is not particularly strong. We have got product going into China. And of course, the US is a market, and we've got some product going elsewhere, but it's not particularly buoyant at the moment in the same way that other product is being affected by what's happening around the world. So, look, prices are back for bobby calf veal, back on last year. Depending on how you look at it, you'd argue that it's perhaps not as significant as what it might be, but we might see some adjustment there.
Now, ahead of you on your calendar, hopefully not COVID dependent, the Alliance Roadshow around the country, Danny. This is an important time of year to press the flesh with your shareholders. What are going to be some of those key concerns that they will have? Do you believe that you can bring some sort of, information, knowledge and assurance to them at this time?
Yeah. Well, Sarah, we have our Alliance annual roadshow meetings coming up late September through into October. And we would encourage not just our Alliance shareholder suppliers to come along, but anyone who has an interest in an Alliance group, and those who may be wanting to find out some more information about the company, and in particular about the markets and what the company's doing, the season that we've just that we're coming out of now. And also how we see the prospects for the season ahead. We've got an exciting product that can't tell you too much about it because it would ruin it, ruin the announcement. But we will be announcing at the road shows an exciting product for our shareholder suppliers that they'll be able to participate in. And so, look, I'd really encourage farmers to get online and register for those upcoming roadshow meetings. And hopefully, the country's on a bit of a correction in terms of COVID, but we'll be happy to see as many people as we can at those roadshow meetings.
Now, Danny, I was just actually thinking, perfect opportunity. Joel, every time I've been, to anything with Alliance, you can guarantee the best quality meat. I've got to say, alongside Silver Fern Farms, they produce fantastic cuisine. Joel's in a bit of a pickle, Danny, around what to bring to this potluck tomorrow. We've had quite a few things come through here. What do you recommend, especially potentially a meat dish or vegetable? On Irish focus would be quite good.
Well, look, I'll tell you what, Sarah, it'd be remiss of me to go past something like Tamana slow-cooked shoulder.
Sous vide shoulder.
Yeah, it's honestly, once you try it, there's no going back. It's pretty good, and then for those who are beef lovers, the 55-day aged.
So sous vide.
55-day aged.
So it's a sous vide 14 hours. Do you have that, Joel? But
I'll stick it on now.
It's worth it. It's worth it when you get there. Believe me.
I'll tell you what, it'll bring anyone to their knees, especially if they're a meat lover. Thank you so much for joining us, Danny Hales, there from Alliance Group, and a bit of an update on what's happening across the markets, and especially the procurement prices. Are they lining up with global red meat demand? Now, coming up after the break, we're going to be joined by Tim Mackle, Chief Executive for DairyNZ. I'd like to understand more around how they're positioning themselves going into this election, especially after the last 3 years. It'll be interesting to see what he's got to say and his advice for Joel.
This is Sarah's Country.
Every morning, Kiwi farmers wake up to produce high quality food. Yet, every night, some Kiwi families are going to sleep hungry. Meet the Need is a charity founded by farmers, and it's here to change all that. We're about New Zealand farmers feeding New Zealand families by donating a small part of what we grow when we can. You can help us make sure no one in New Zealand goes to sleep hungry again. Visit meettheneed.org and follow us on social.
Well, DairyNZ has released its policy priorities for the up-and-coming election, focusing on science, investment, future-proofing dairying and getting the right environmental policies in place. The priorities have been based on feedback received from 248 farmers that DairyNZ surveyed in July, and DairyNZ Chief Executive Tim Mackle joins us now. Good evening, Tim. Thank you so much. The work that you've gone into these 10 priorities, certainly it'd be great if you can run through them, but also at the same time, let's talk about, how far we've come in the last 3 years as well.
Yeah, hi Sarah. Look, it has been a big 3 years, hasn't it? Especially this one. Look, we did go out to farmers to really seek a voice from behind the farm gate to bring forward. And of course, a lot of different partners do that, whether it be fed farmers or beef and lamb and so on. But we've done this at least the last 3 elections I can remember, but this is a little bit different this time. We actually decided let's go and really hear from farmers first, because we did want to make sure that what we saw as the priorities for dairy farming resonated very much with what we're hearing out there, or vice versa, more to the point that we were on the button. And so I think that was a good thing. So we've come up with 10 priorities, really under 3 main categories, which come from those discussions with farmers and from what we've picked up along the way. We've just been through a big levy vote through May, and so that obviously gave us a lot of good feedback from farmers as to how they're feeling and what they want to see from us too.
So those key 3 themes that the 10 priorities are broken down to, can you explain those?
Yeah, look, just briefly, the first one's really about refocusing investment in science. And so it is really about investing to unlock more value from what we do, but also more volume, and not just for dairy, but for food and fibre more generally. We think there is a lot of opportunity to export more across food and fibre, and also at higher value. So what have we got to do to set ourselves up in terms of investment and innovation to do that? And the second part really is about investing to reduce our environmental footprint, which is really a huge challenge for us, and to drive more profit for our farmers at the same time. So that's the investing in science piece. The second one really is about future-proofing our sector. And so firstly, workforce. And, that was an issue pre-COVID. Quite frankly, it's been for quite some time. But with COVID-19 and like other sectors, but particularly dairy and hort, we've been quite disrupted with ability to bring migrant labour, which has been a really big part of our sector for quite a number of years. So that situation, as you know, Sarah, doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So we really need a good plan for this. Fortunately, the government have really come to the party to help us with a Go Dairy campaign. It's slowed down a bit, quite frankly, in terms of numbers coming in. Probably some pull factors holding them back. But, over time, I think we'll see them all coming. So that's one good thing, but really a longer-term strategy is needed. The other piece of that future-proofing is really about infrastructure. So we're talking about water storage, mobile connectivity, broadband, that type of stuff as well. And you've also got pieces like the RMA. Of course, good to hear the government announcing some reforms coming to that as well, which is another good piece as well. And lastly, biosecurity, that future-proofing is such a big important part. Particularly, we know the kiwifruit sector's felt that keenly, and so have we in livestock and cattle with the bovis. And the third piece really, Sarah, is about getting our environment setting and support right. So making sure that our targets when it comes to both emissions reductions and water quality are right, that they're fair as well, and they're really actually going to help us solve problems. And then getting us set up to support farmers to meet those. So that's a big challenge ahead of us. So those 3 key things. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the government can do so much in terms of filtering funds in certain directions, but in terms of from an industry organisation such as DairyNZ, there's a lot of work that your organisation needs to do in a lot of these places as well to seek that out. So how is there sort of a collective, more longer-term approach rather than this term-to-term type mentality that farmers are getting fairly sick of being thrown around as a political football through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, my own personal view, it's not a DairyNZ official view, is that this 3-year term is just too short to actually get underway and achieve some real things in between election periods. But putting that aside, I agree. I think, look, if we look at the confidence that we and farmers that we when you from the survey we conducted that you mentioned, Sarah, something like 94-95% of dairy farmers that we survey do feel proud to be in dairy, particularly at the moment, which is great. But someone, I guess, if you look at mental health issues, either the dairy farmers themselves or someone who they're connected to on their farm, in their farming business, 62% of those said that either themselves or someone on their farming business has been affected in some way by mental health in the last year. So that's quite a big number. And so there's less confidence about the future. Clearly, it's been a tough time for dairy farmers and more broadly in the livestock sector with drought, issues like that. And of course, we've had M. bovis to deal with as well in the cattle sectors. And of course, there's been a lot of regulation change or pending changes in the last term as well, as you indicate. So all those things, I think, are culminating in a level of uncertainty and COVID on top of that going forward. So it's really important that we project a positive future for farmers, and fundamentally, we've got some challenges, but at the same time, huge opportunities going forward. And I think COVID-19 has shown us that we are in a really good place here with food in New Zealand.
And where we were 3 years ago, in terms of multitudes of different manifestos, as a lot of people don't like to call them anymore, from individual industry organisations, there's been a real shift and change, hasn't there, in terms of collaborating on some of these very shared problems. Mental health is certainly one of them. Rural broadband is certainly one of them. And, of course, so is labour shortages. Do you believe that farmers and growers across the country can see more collaboration going forward on our big tough issues every part of the primary sector faces collectively together?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Sarah, and the short answer is we must achieve more together, and farmers are demanding that, and quite rightly so. They pay levies and fees and membership fees to multiple organisations, and so they quite rightly should expect to see that level of collaboration. And I do think it's actually improved a heck of a lot. So, you talk about the last 3 years. Well, actually, this Food and Fibre Leaders Forum, which really was born really a little over 3 years ago, and when a bunch of farming leaders stood by a river in the Hawke's Bay in May, and so since then, there's been a huge amount of collaboration at that level, at a very senior level through governance. And the good thing is the Prime Minister herself and senior ministers have engaged quite regularly with that group. I heard the Prime Minister today mention that, that farming leaders group has been in the top, group of that she's engaged with. There's certainly no group that she's engaged with more, would be what she'd say. And that's a really impressive bit of information, Sarah. And I would say that there's been really strong engagement. So we need to build off that with whoever comes to power in terms of the next government. But in terms of that solidarity of working together, it's definitely improving. It can get better. There's a couple of tension points when it comes to issues like allocation, and we're really going to have to work through those issues in the next period, Sarah.
Okay, and I'm just going to throw this to you, Tim. On that theme, how much of it is playing politics to ensure that you don't get the door shoved in your face but with this particular coalition government or a red-green coalition looking likely going for another 3 years, of not stirring the pot up too much as well? If farmers are saying to me that they're not being loud enough or more vocal, and that it's all a patch protection element to make sure that we can continue to be at the table. It must be a real balancing act, Tim.
Well, I think the key thing is, we all need to work with whoever is in power in government and whatever political persuasion, and understand, the needs of broader New Zealand and of our food and fibre sector and farmers. So we've got to find a way to make that work, no matter what. I think that's a guiding principle, and you've got to be in a place where you can express our opinions, and we certainly do with the government. We all have made it very clear there are aspects of the zero carbon bill, such as the range of 24 to 47%, which we completely rejected, and we felt it wasn't based on science, certainly the science that we believe was the right one to hang your hat on. So. And that, I think you need to build a relationship so you can actually have those good, robust discussions, but agree on where the common ground is. So I think those days of just rejecting everything outright have gone, not only in New Zealand but across the world. And we've just got to understand that you have to express your views and be clear about what you don't agree with and the logic behind that. It is about being authentic in what you believe in, having strong logic and having a bit of empathy too for people and farmers at the moment in particular doing a great job out there. And at the moment, Auckland's in lockdown, so there's got to be a bit of empathy for those people too. So I think it's a fair point that you've got to find ways to work with people. But rest assured, Sarah, we are absolutely expressing our clear views to the government, and they may not always agree with you, but at least they're listening.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, before you sneak away, Tim, I have a bit of a problem of my own. I've got a potluck dinner happening at my home tomorrow night, and I was very excited about inviting Joel, who's been with me through lockdown. He's the one person that I couldn't have got through without, yet he is stumped in terms of what to cook. He is actually quite a good cook, but I'm asking our guests and our audience today for some suggestions for Joel. What's your good go-to potluck that you'd take? Winter type theme.
Go-to potluck would probably be some kind of pasta dish, really, to be frank. But given Joel's Irish, right, maybe a meat and 3 veg sort of thing, boil the heck out of the vegetables. I'm mainly Irish, Joel, so I think I can say that, hopefully. Maybe go there. May not work well for potluck, but meat and 3 veg, maybe.
Boiled bland potatoes. Okay, that takes it number 1 so far. Thank you so much. Chief Executive of DairyNZ, Tim Mackle, working through the top 10 priorities there for the government going into this up-and-coming election. See, Joel, I tell you what, all of the people in this industry are more than approachable to help you out with your challenge tonight. And of course, our audience has been absolutely outstanding as well. Now, Harriet has said she's on the potato theme. Scallop potatoes. They're quite yummy and easy. I'm not so good at, I suppose you could make them dairy-free. Yeah. Well, she said just don't bother and just bring gin. But as a school night, you've got lots of work to do on Fridays. And Jock, of course, he loves some venison, so he's suggesting some venison.
Nice. We
actually have one of our, should I say this, vegetarian guests who's actually an avid hunter. So he could be bringing along some as well. You never know. Of course. Joel, have you been inspired yet?
Well, I do like the potatoes idea, although my mum did say ribs, and as soon as I heard that,
it made you really hungry.
I really want ribs now. So, yeah, I might look into that.
But, I mean, what is your normal go-to with Sarah? I mean, I know you went to Japan before you came here, and Japanese food's brilliant. I'd love you to bring some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I love just making a big pot of ramen soup. It's so good and it's so easy. And yeah, you can make a big pot of it and it'll last you for the week, which is nice.
All right, done. I reckon it will make a good entree. Ramen.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. We'll take a lot of dishes and put them up on my Instagram story. Now, coming up after the break to close, we are going to, not to close, we're going to be joined by, we're getting to the Bay of Plenty, that is, to uncover how iwi are making inroads to harvest value from fruit waste with Nigel Slaughter from Ligar.
This is Sarah's Country.
Really pleased we got into this. Thanks for your help, Dave.
It's a good idea, honey. You reckon it'll come out? Cover it and tell compound to leave it 10 minutes, and you'll be fine. Good call, Dave.
Good call on getting those security cameras, Dave.
You call a new one yet?
Yeah, kind of.
When you've got decisions to make, we'll be there to help you make the right call.
I'd go for those ones, Bob. Yeah, good call.
Did you choose these?
Oh, you know.
For great advice and insurance, talk to FMG.
The recipe for perfect beef and lamb. Take one small fresh country. Make sure it's nice and remote. Now, keep it at the ideal temperature all year round. Next, mix in the farmers. They go perfectly with the nature of this unique place. Add regular sprinkles of rain to really bring out the lush meadow grass. Then let your animals happily graze on this grass, all day, every day. And there you have it, New Zealand, the perfect recipe for beef and lamb. Taste pure nature.
Well, Bay of Plenty iwi will be the first in the country to harvest high-value bioactive molecules alongside their perennial kiwifruit crops in coming years. This initiative to extract and commercialise high-value bioactive molecules from plant-based foods and horticulture is expected to reach an ingredient market of US valued $51 billion by 2024, and the potential to kickstart a very new Māori-led export sector. In this week's Farmers Weekly, Richard Rennie uncovers Te Awanui Limited, a subsidiary of kiwifruit company Te Awanui Global Pack that has partnered up with Waikato-based biotech company Ligar to start harvesting this high-value bioactives for the nutraceutical market. This is, of course, for kiwifruit and avocado waste streams. Joining us now to explore this further is Ligar's Chief Exploration Officer, cool title, Nigel Slaughter. Good evening, Nigel, and thank you for joining us tonight. This is really exciting stuff.
Good evening. Yeah, it is.
Now, what does bioactives mean exactly?
It's a tricky one. People use the word for all sorts of different things. So, technically, it's what people call the extra nutritional molecules that are present in small quantities in plants. So these are things that you don't necessarily know that are there, things you tend to peel off because they're often in the skins. So while you think you're eating good foods, you might not be if you've taken off the skins. And they act in the body. And so they do different things. So that, I guess one of the ones we're all familiar with is caffeine. That's just a bioactive molecule from a bean. So, but there's a whole range of things. There's literally millions of them. And so we're just looking at the things that we can help extract in a better way, a more cost-effective way, or a more accurate way.
So how did Ligar connect with the subsidiary kiwifruit company of Te Awanui, Te Awanui, and how did that whole partnership come about?
Yeah, there's some kind of relationships going on in the background, and we've got a shared personnel and chairman through Dr. Andy West, who kind of formed the bridge between the two companies. And we've kind of known each other for a while, and I think the discussions went along the lines of, we kind of saw the potential, and then they've got a good, strong relationship with Seeker, significant shareholders in Seeker, so they got this stream. And we were looking at extending what we can do in bioactives and saying, well, what can we do in New Zealand? And we had a joint project into MB just to look at the kiwifruit and avocados, and also we can stretch it into hops as well, just to see what was there. And it's a combination of, these molecules are kind of well known and their uses are well known. What we're bringing is the ability to sort of target them a lot more specifically. So rather than just creating, essentially dissolving a skin and putting into a powder and putting into a pill, you can be very, very precise in extracting the things that you actually want. And so we were just looking at what do people already use these for, what have they identified, and then how can we apply our technology to just to see, is there something we can do? And we're uncovering a whole bunch of things that we could do. And it's a question, which ones we do, we're still trying to figure out.
And how do we capture the value here at home, especially in a large global ingredient market?
Yeah, it was a question that we had because most of our work as Ligar have been going on and saying, well, most of the companies wanting these extracts are overseas, so there wasn't much of a demand here. So part of the relationship with Te Awanui and Te Whao is around creating companies that can use these extracts and support the creation of these. Not all of it's going to go that way, but we're saying, well, here's a novel extract that we can make. Rather than just shipping that overseas, let's create some companies here or support some existing companies to extend what they're doing here.
And I understand that you're looking at things like hemp and kava as well. Yeah.
So hemp we've been looking at for a very, very long time. And and there's a whole range. And it's a well-known plant for this range of molecules that people are after. And it's actually, the hemp and the CBD market's actually driven a huge increase in understanding of people saying, this thing in this plant is going to give me a health benefit. So just the range of products that have been developed around CBD this, CBD that, even down to I saw some CBD toothpicks, which is just crazy, but anyway. So there's that's driving understanding of what's actually there and what's available. And kava can actually be an opposite way to say, there are some kava plantations growing where there's a well-known toxin, a liver toxin that's in there. So the rest of the plant's good, but if you get the wrong species or if you concentrate it up, you concentrate up this toxin. So we can then look at it and say, well, can we remove that toxin and let everything else stay? And so, that could make a broader range of the plants available and increase the number, increase the value to the Pacific Islands of the crops they already have.
Okay, so with a broad brush approach to this question, in terms of perception is one thing in terms of marketing beneficials, but in terms of the extraction process being blurred with genetic modification or gene editing, the laboratory process around this, how does that differ?
So, and it's a good question. There's a lot of the processes, and there's some really interesting processes out there to make so-called natural molecules where they're essentially being fabricated. Ours is a very soft touch approach. So we take the plant, run it through essentially a gentle extraction process, and then that liquid you pass through our materials, which just grab onto the molecules you're after, and everything else flows through. That compares to, then we're not modifying the plant in any way, we're just taking what's in the plant. So whatever's in the plant comes out. Mm-hmm. And it also compares to the normal extraction methods where you might be kind of like boiling it under pressure or putting it under kind of mixing solvents in to separate things out. So we bypass the need to do that. So you get a much cleaner product, and one that might not have been denatured by heat. So in general, we're getting a better product out of it in a very simple process.
And of course, just finally, back on that relationship with Te Awanui and of course, iwi being at the forefront of this. There's a quote there, it's about encouraging Māori to be first in line rather than last to the food trough when it comes to capturing value back to Māori agribusiness. How does this fit in with their value systems around kaitiakitanga and nature as well, when there's a laboratory element to it?
Yeah, and so there's two parts. There's one, Te Awanui and the broader group are very keen to build up the science capabilities within Māori, and we can help with that and build the connections into science. So create higher value jobs, bring people in who can kind of learn all the way up through the process, just from on farm all the way through to running the equipment and making the extract. So that's one part of it. And the other side is saying, well, we know there's lots of native extracts and that are available, native plants that we can look at, but instead of doing it and begging forgiveness later and looking at the IP and ownership rights and those sorts of things, you actually get that right up front, create a framework where we can do this and look at these plants right from the get-go, saying we're doing this the right way. And that'll take time to build up and flesh out. That's one of the things is like, well, let's do this the right way right from the start. And that's at the core of what we're looking at. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. It's like we're doing a full circle of humanity, going back to natural plant medicine, effectively. But we're just extracting it to put it into a convenient form for our busy lives.
People are lazy, and so if often the presentation I put up, here's all the foods that we would like to tell people we're eating. It's kind of like the social media, this is what I had for my meal, and you show this wonderful thing when actually the diet that we have is pretty limited. There's a very small number of plants that we go to regularly, and those have been bred to a point where often these extra nutrients have been bred out of them. So we like our convenience foods, so let's think of ways of putting these things back into foods that we find convenient. And yeah, there we go, easy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nigel Slaughter, the Chief Exploratory Officer. Very cool job he has there at Ligar, a biotech company in Waikato, working with Te Awanui, a kiwifruit company, around how they can add value to bioactives, certain nutraceuticals. I'm going to go to you, Joel. What do you think about this concept of pulling the goodness out of what we should be consuming as human beings and just making it all convenient, fit it into a pill, and that's all we need to consume for the day? Where are we going with this? What do you have any concerns?
Not concerns. It sounds pretty good to me, to be honest. I like the idea, just like having a wee capsule that I could take, and that'll supplement it, and then I can just eat whatever I want, or well, within reason.
Do you know what? I think that this is setting New Zealand up to be right and ride the wave of personal health, which is coming just around the corner, so we can eat and consume based on our personal health. And it was going to shake up a lot of vegan philosophies, because people's bodies individually need a lot of things. My sister Joel said, do you know why there's a lot of vegan snack food? It's because vegans are always hungry because they're not getting enough protein. There we are. Heard it here on Serious Country. After the break, we're going to close the show, joined by Bernie Linsky from the Wallace Group. Some seriously dire situations happening now that is seeing farmers now pay to get casualty stock picked up from their farms. Otherwise, we're going to see nearly 200,000 calves buried on farms this year, and the environmental flow-on effect of that is very massive. Bernie will join us after the break on Serious Country.
This is Sarah's Country.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here
is where to shop for the things you need to live out here.
like electric fencing,
or horse feed,
or bee suits,
chill bench,
chook food.
Do you want a couple of these?
Or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this,
but at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help you farm,
grow, milk, dredge,
rear, come on in.
Because we're out here too.
Well, in an article from Annette Scott from this last week's Farmers Weekly, farmers are being urged to carefully consider appropriate disposal methods of casualty calves after collection services have ceased in the South Island unless farmers are prepared to pay for them. Wallace Group has asked for farmers to pay due to the market slump for, of course, luxury leather around the world due to COVID. And this has prompted the loss of 120 jobs, leaving up to nearly 250,000 slinks calves to be buried on farm this spring. Now, Wallace Group South Island Casualty Stock Operations General Manager Bernie Linsky joins us now to discuss. Thank you for joining us on Serious Country, Bernie. I really appreciate it in this very trying time. Can you tell us a bit more about what is driving this decision from behind market forces that are out of your control?
Yes, well, basically, the casualty calf has two income streams for us. One is the skin, the value that we get from taking the skin off and selling it for, as you say, luxury goods. A lot of it goes into handbags and shoes and so on. The other income stream is the waste that we get after we've taken the skins off is rendered down. So this year, for various reasons, one, the return that we've been getting from the rendables products, which is basically meat and bone meal and tallow, has slumped dramatically. Market forces. On the other side of things, the other income stream, the skins, same thing has happened. There's less demand for them, the prices come down, And there's an element of uncertainty brought on by the COVID too, where people aren't prepared to make the buying decisions that they had been making. So therefore the tanners are a bit reluctant to commit. The manufacturers are a bit reluctant to buy off the tanners, are a bit uncertain as to who's actually going to buy the products made with our materials.
Can you give us our audience an understanding of that slump in terms of processed calf hides?
Well, some of that slump was signalled, and people will be aware that the return this year that they're getting for the bobby calves is down, and some of that is because of the slump in the value of the skins. So this was signalled earlier in the piece, and basically the COVID just exaggerated the situation. So a lot more hesitancy and people unwilling to commit, down go the prices.
So Bernie, with regards to Wallace Group, how significant has this been on your business?
It's been very significant. Our business is dedicated to the collection and processing of casualty stock. That's what we do. We operate that business right throughout the South Island. We would have up to 120 workers employed over that casualty season, just processing the skins and all the rest of it. And in addition to that, we'd have a substantial number of contractors. These are the people that go from farm to farm picking up the animals. They might be community groups, there might be small contractors and all this. So there's a significant drop of income and a significant drop of basically services that people had supported for a number of years.
Spread across the South Island, in particular your Waikato-based slink skin operation, which I know only a year or so ago, very excited to get up and underway. Can I please touch on this environmental impact that you are concerned about that on-farm disposal is going to cause with no casualty animal collection?
Yes. Well, with the casualty collection, all of the waste, we call it, from the farm, the skins and the render material, is all disposed of. The rendering, of course, not buried. The skins converted into something else. Now, the alternative to the service we offered is really burying on farm, or somebody else collecting and taking all the material off farm and disposing of it, for example, in a landfill somewhere, which is really quite expensive. We're concerned that if there's too much burying, there's potential environmental damage with the water table and all the rest of it. And I think also that probably the volume, the numbers, is one of the things that's really surprised some people.
Is Agricultural Minister Damien O'Connor aware of the situation, Bernie?
Yes, the Minister is aware. Our organisation has been in contact with him. There have been frequent meetings with his ministry, and those meetings included people like the farmer representatives, like the environmental people. All of those people have had a say. So the situation is well known, and there's been a lot of talk, but so far no actual action.
And what type of action would you like the government to come to the party on, Bernie, that would help? Especially not only your business, but of course farmers now having to pay for the collection of this service.
Well, I suppose there's a whole lot of potential things that could come in terms of a funding source. There could be some recognition of the potential environmental damage and some of the money that's been put to the good environmental strategic measures or whatever that people are having. Maybe something could come from there. I think really that at the end of the day, it's really got to come down to the dairy industry as a whole, and possibly the government with some sort of support, given the peculiar situations. In other words, we've got this COVID environment that has certainly contributed largely to what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Bernie Linsky is the South Island General Manager with regards to casualty stock operations for Wallace Group, and just highlighting the flow-on effect there. You take money out of the luxury goods system, has a flow-on effect right through to what we're calling casualty stock is, of course, animals that sadly pass away is lambs or calves on farm. It's a normal practice that happens throughout the year, and and of course with that market gone, leaving lots of flow-on effects, and COVID is just seeming to be flow-on effect after flow-on effect, and nobody is coming unscathed. Farmers out there paying to take wool off and now paying to take away casualty stock off their farm. We're here with you. We're feeling your pain. Thank you so much to Bernie for taking the time to join us, and we'll follow that story very closely. I know Annette Scott certainly will. Absolutely. Now, that's all we've got time for tonight on Sarah's Country. Thank you so much for sticking with us, watching us live, wherever that you enjoy watching live, or of course on demand on podcast, Sarah's Country. You can search wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts, and of course subscribe to ensure that you can download those episodes and take them with you when you have no reception. You can listen to them on demand in the truck, out on the farm, wherever those big long drives that you love to take. You can get in touch, Sarah at periummedia.com, with any of your suggestions on story ideas, guests, etc., or just some general good old feedback. Love to hear from our audience. And of course, tonight is put together in alliance with a great team at Farmers Weekly. In your mailboxes around New Zealand, 80,000 rural newspapers are delivered weekly free to you to keep you up to date with the most in-depth agricultural journalism there is in this country. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you tonight, and we'll be back Monday live from 7 o'clock right here. Until then, have a great weekend, stay safe, and tonight, go well.
This is Sarah's Country.